everybody. It's good to see everybody at residency. I'm going to be introducing my dissertation title, which is a phenomenological study of collaborations between public schools and non-profits offering traditional martial arts programs. And the evolution of the literature really changed for me because starting out I did not contemplate that I would be doing a study specifically on martial arts. I mean, I felt very attached to that because I am a martial arts instructor and I've worked for a nonprofit in lower income areas, and I've seen the benefits that martial arts brings to students and how it improves academics, how it engages the students and really changes their whole outlook of what they can do and their potential and their motivation to succeed. So it's really something dear to me, and I'm very excited to present during this time the prospectus and this PowerPoint. Really quick, I'm just going to give a synopsis of what I'm going to be talking about. I really focused on, since the No Child Left Behind Act and the policies that have been put forth that have focused on performance, it's really affected schools because they've had to focus more on their mathematics and their reading in order to be up to standard. And so this has affected, when it comes to the budget, there's been more and more cutting of the sports, arts, and music programs. And this is really affecting children's, growth and development because those are the outlets to build character and to learn respect and have a creative outlet. And so it really does affect the students when those programs are cut. And there's a lot of scholars and a lot of literature of strategies that schools have been using so that they do not have to cut those programs. And it really depends on the school, because I found one study where in Michigan, the teachers union had the choice of either taking a pay cut for 3 years for their core teachers or cutting the sports, arts, and music programs. And so they cut the sports, arts, and music programs so they did not have to take a pay cut. And it was specifically the union that was driving that decision, and it caused a lot of controversy among the school and with the parents. But another school actually started partnering with other schools around them to build a specific athletic facility that each of those schools could use. And so there's been a lot of collaborative effort to save the sports, arts, and music programs in creative ways. The thing I like about martial arts is that you don't have to teach full contact sparring because there is the question of, well, is martial arts something that would cause more injury? And truth be told, you can teach it very controlled. It really depends on the type of instruction and the way that they structure the program, but it's one of the most cost-effective programs that you can really have. Students don't have to have uniforms. When I worked for my nonprofit, the students were from very low-income communities. They couldn't afford uniforms, and actually the nonprofit was not able to afford uniforms at that time. It worked very well. We were still able to do the program either indoors or outdoors, whatever was needed. And I had one kick bag that I used. I didn't need a lot of equipment. You don't even have to have a kick bag if you're just focusing on the repetitive motions and hand, feet, and techniques in the air. So it's really cost effective and it really helps students. And my sample size, I honestly am not sure about, so I wanted to talk about that in this video because although I have a slide introducing my participants and my procedure, obviously I'm going to be doing qualitative data and interviews for a phenomenological study. Honestly, I don't know the sample size yet because I'm not sure if I'm going to be comparing 3 or 4 organizations. I don't know if I'm going to be comparing several different schools within one organization and another organization. Right now, I have 2 main ones that I'm really excited to compare and contrast and understand how they work with the school districts. And so that's what my study is mainly going to be about, and I hope you enjoy the PowerPoint and the slideshow. Title of the study is a phenomenological study of collaborations of public schools and nonprofits offering martial arts programs, providing resources for at-risk youth. The problem statement is that budget cuts are burdening lower income areas as cost is being transferred to the parent, private, donors, and community organizations to save sports and arts programs. Since my study is targeting at-risk youth, I wanted to provide some statements that I thought were really important to what I'm trying to convey. And the top one says that 68% of the nation's prison population are high school dropouts. And this is a huge cost burden to the state each year. Also, California is one of 18 states in which taxpayers pay more for prison than they do education. I found a really interesting study by Mendenhall about a juvenile delinquency hall in Utah, and they actually used a martial arts program as an intervention program and found that out of everything they had brought in, it was the most successful program in eliminating returns to that facility the next year. And so, what the program included, which I thought was really interesting, was Buddhist mental training and meditation training, which is a huge part of traditional martial arts, but is not included in competitive and modern sport-oriented martial arts. And so there is a huge difference between traditional martial arts and the modern arts, and I think that that's a important distinction that my study is focusing on martial arts programs that do include meditation training. So this slide encompasses a lot of what I included in my literature review. I try to get as up-to-date sources as I could, but it was very difficult because there's not a lot of literature on martial arts programs. This specifically was a dissertation about the impact of an after-school program on at-risk students, which I thought was very relevant to my study. I talk about it later in the presentation, but they found that those who participated in the study improved in their academics. It really affected their academics and their grades. They improved in their self-esteem, and they were actually less favorable toward violence. The purpose of this study is to provide evidence martial arts programs can help at-risk youth through public-private partnerships. Collaborative efforts can stop private owners from taking over youth sports, according to a source by Newswire in 2014. This slide focuses on my conceptual framework, which includes social cognitive theory, collaborative theory, and transformational leadership. There's very little research about transformational leadership and its impact on coaches and athletes. I was able to find a specific source that focused on the transformational leadership of martial arts instructors and how transformational leadership style was considered the best style for helping students, because martial arts instructors are able to be sources of inspiration for their students. And a transformational leader is not your typical leader that provides rewards for doing something. It actually is somebody who inspires you to go above and beyond in your performance when you're trying to attain a specific goal. So this study will explore how instructors are transformational leaders, which can have profound impacts on their students' views of their own self-efficacy. For that reason, I included a model about self-efficacy theory. Self-efficacy is your belief in your ability to take on challenging tasks. It's a little bit more than self-esteem. You could be assured or have a confidence level in doing specific things, whether you may be good in sports or you're good in math, but self-efficacy is more than that. Self-efficacy means that you have confidence that you can undertake tasks that are very challenging that you've never done before, and you're able to overcome them. And so my model focuses on the relationship of social cognitive theory. I put training environment because my specific study will focus on training environment, which is why I wanted to focus my conceptual framework on how one's personal motivation of self-efficacy can be shaped by their teachers, by their training environment, and by their peers. This is Woodland and Hutton's presentation on the collaboration, evaluation, and improvement framework, which is an extension of earlier work in collaborative theory. And I really liked how it talked about the 4 different steps of trying to measure how your collaboration is going to be successful. How do you gauge success? You know, that could be different for instructors versus students and teachers. You know, teachers could think, well, their grades have improved and their attendance in class has improved. That's a measure of importance for us, and that's how we gauge this martial arts program's effectiveness. Whereas a martial arts instructor could gauge it by, you know, the students' motivation to succeed in their class and how engaged they are when they're doing their martial arts training. So how do they make that collaboration come together? How do they map communities of practice? How do they continually monitor the success of the collaboration, and how do they keep in touch? What are their systems of communications? How do they assess where they're at within the collaboration? Those are all important to the different elements of the collaborative framework. For my research questions, I was looking at how can collaborations between public schools and nonprofits teaching traditional martial arts be a solution to the problems facing at-risk youth? How are resources coordinated between the public schools and nonprofits? How do nonprofit leaders work with administrators to identify advantages of the collaboration? What strategies would you apply to guarantee success? And how do you meet the goals outlined by the schools? How do instructors mitigate the effects of their students' external environment on their level of motivation? Design and procedures for this study is a phenomenological study, which is why my study would be qualitative data, which would include observations, interviews, and open-ended questions. I wanted to have a slide talking about the links of community involvement, teachers, and parents, because I feel that that's really important to what my study is trying to address. So I was trying to figure out how to incorporate my conceptual framework using all the theories that I had given you guys an overview about, and to think about Mary Parker Follett and how she was an organizer of helping community centers collaborate with public schools. And so I came up with this sentence that I think embodies the entire study and the conceptual framework. Martial arts instructors must collaborate with public administrators in order to evaluate their work as transformational leaders in building and forming students' self-efficacy. I hope that you guys enjoyed my presentation, and I'm looking forward to receiving feedback about what you guys think I could improve upon or alter in the course of the next few Prospectus courses. Hope you guys are all healthy and stay safe.